So you come back to Northern Ireland, you move into academia, you get married, you're rearing 2 sons, and you choose the trade union movement and the burgeoning women's rights movement for your social activism. It must have been really hard trying to do stuff so positive, because the 80s, it's the background, the hunger strikes, the long war, the bitter stalemate, the constant failed political initiatives.
Yeah.
So talk to me about those contrasts.
Well, again, there was a great deal of learning, both in the trade union movement and the women's movement. The trade union movement was fighting hard to be anti-sectarian, not as I say in the book, not just non-sectarian. It was Angela Davis who gave me that thinking when she came from the civil rights movement to Northern Ireland at our invitation and said, it's better to be anti-racist than non-racist. And we were struggling in the trade union movement to get anti-sectarian movement, a large anti-sectarian movement, to be part of the peace process. And Eileen Weir, who joined me in those days, if you remember, Eileen, it's a long time ago, and you were working on the factory floor at the time, and you were shop steward, and came from a different tradition, Protestant working class tradition, and today works in the Women's Centre in the Shankill, and was as brave then as she is today. And it's well known that, Eileen, you receive death threats today as a result of the strong stand that you're currently taking in your own community on the Shankill, saying that we need to settle down this rhetoric over Brexit and over the protocol. And as a result of you having such a strong voice, as you did all those years in the trade union movement, you get these death threats, and you still continue to stand up and speak out. So I want to pay tribute to women like Eileen. And your other friends who've come down today, who you're associated with Glencree. And at this stage, I want to thank Glencree that's also another movement that's really bringing people together, north and south. But that was how both the trade union movement and the women's movement. Now, the trade union movement, a bit like the civil rights movement, was very male-dominated. And we wanted to break a little of that down and say, look, women have a role to play here in decision-making as well. So we formed our own women's committee, and we stood up on very strong issues like strip searching, which was a very difficult issue in terms of getting cross-community support, strip searching in the prison. And the problem was that Republicans, in particular Sinn Féin, were making it their issue. And what the trade union movement did was make it a human rights issue, and said that it's unfair to treat women in prison using power and control over their bodies. And particularly as a woman, I say in the book, went through a Catholic convent school education. Your body was something that you did not expose in any way, and it was used in our own conflict in too many ways as a way of using and disempowering women. So the trade union movement tackled that issue, and we actually won motions of support for that. And so we came through those difficult times, but they were very weary times as well, because you were attacked by all sides at times, and likewise the women's movement. I mean, the women's movement tried hard to be, and people in other conflicts say this to me, how do you get women to get consensus when we come from such different backgrounds on such tough issues? And so we used human rights, inclusion, equality, to build that consensus. And that, again, is where we cut our teeth for the Women's Coalition. And it wasn't easy. There was lots of factionalizing, and the men used to, laugh as if they were ever able to be one big homogenous group. They'd say, oh, gee, look at those women, they can't agree on anything. And in fact, we were agreeing on many things.